Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting for Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. I'd first await a motion to leave the non-public meeting and to seal the meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? June, will you please take the roll?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor McCachran.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Councillor Cook.
Here.
Councillor Tabor.
Here.
Councillor Blaylock.
Present.
Councillor Bagley.
Here.
Councillor Moreau.
Here.
Councillor Flynn.
Here.
Councillor Hopkins.
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you, June. Before we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd just like to take a moment of silence for Walter Wakefield, who is no longer with us, and just to share the memory that a lot of us got to know, whether it was him as an antique book dealer, as a fireman. He was a true character of Portsmouth. He will be missed, and we send our condolences to his family. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no minutes, and we're going on to some recognitions and volunteer committee reports. We have Scholastic Writing Award winners, and we have the Portsmouth High School Boys Alpine Ski Team, once again celebrating Titletown here in Portsmouth. There's no happier time than welcoming our winners, and I'm going to say a couple of things about each. But it's just such an honor to be able to welcome you guys into City Hall, where we get reminded of why any of us does what we do, and that's so that the next generation can do it better than we have. And you guys are a great example of what hard work, when you put it in, what you get out. So first, I would like to welcome the Scholastic Writing Award winners. Portsmouth High School students recently participated in the National Scholastic Writing Awards program. 3 Portsmouth High students won a total of 9 Scholastic Writing Awards, 2 gold keys, 3 silver keys, and 4 honorable mentions. Senior Kay Rappaport won a gold key award for their personal essay and memoir, Sculpting Bodies, and was one of just 5 students statewide selected to receive an American Voices Award. They also received an honorable mention for their poem, Through the Fire. Round of applause. Freshman Kenzie Rappaport won a gold key award for their short story, Astro World, and 3 silver key awards, 1 in speculative fiction for their work, Speed Dial, and 2 in poetry for their poems, Word of Mouth and Emails from the Navy. They also received honorable mention recognition for each of 2 poems, Gravity Falls and Through the Window. Round of applause. Junior Simon Knoll received an honorable mention in poetry for his poem, Folding. This statewide recognition follows the announcement last month that 33 Portsmouth High School students had won Scholastic Arts Awards. I encourage you in really celebrating this as an embodiment of the work that goes on at the high school, and just the commitment of this city to continuing to get better, to invest in the arts, to invest in writing, and to do the work of making a better world by first imagining a different one. So really thank you for all the work, and I would invite all of you award winners to come up. I got some pins here, and I just want to get a picture if you guys are willing.
Oh, come on.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Great work, guys.
Congratulations, parents.
There, yeah, that's right.
Now we have the Mayor's Award for the Clipper Alpine Ski Team. This is a 15-member Portsmouth High School boys Clipper Alpine Ski Team that won 5 of 6 regular season wins, with 7 of them qualifying to compete in the championship last week. The team includes captains Will DeDeas, Connor Williams, Charlie Rudig, Ryan Irwin, Henry Highland, Eiler Peabody, Trip Giannani, and Jack Martin, Leo McNeely, Theo Marvin, Simon Noel, Lincoln Silverman, Jack Majewski, Victor Mohadeno, and Bowden Combs. As Kaz said, this is a deep team with several boys waiting in the wings to replace our 2 graduating seniors with strong skills. Ski racing involves a combination of aggression and control, and this team has built a beautiful balance of both. In both the giant slalom and the slalom, Will DeDeas, Charlie Rudig, Ryan Irvin, and Jack Martin contribute to the overall score that won the championship. And, you know, as I think we've all been watching the drama of the Winter Olympics, I think those that think you can do this, you know, you just have to look at like the drone shots and realize there's no way that this is going to happen. But one story stands out on the state championship team. In high school racing, you can get up from a fall and continue. Jack Martin, the Clippers' top skier, fell on his second slalom run in the afternoon while leading after his first run. His ski popped off, but he got up, got the ski back on, and finished with enough points to give the team a second place in the event and the overall championship. As Kaz said, you know, I think there's a lesson there, and you know, it's when you think about, you know, yourself. Obviously, Jack wasn't going to win that race with the ski popping off. I mean, he's good, but you know, maybe not that good. But knowing what was on the line, knowing that his teammates needed him to make a quick decision and to get that ski back on and get down the hill and get points on the board for the team. That's what team's all about, and it's a great lesson for us all that even if, you know, our chance of winning isn't going to be in the cards for that exact moment, there's a lot of people depending on us day in and day out. That's what makes teams a great thing, is that you learn not only to work for yourself, but to show up for your teammates. That's a lesson that you guys are going to carry on for the rest of your lives. And as long as we can remember, you know, that here on the council, that we don't always get what we want up here, but it's not about getting what we want. It's about making sure the team succeeds, that Portsmouth succeeds. It's a great lesson. So I just want to thank you all for the recognition. And it took me this long to say this, but this is the three-peat, the 3rd straight Division State 1 championship. The Portsmouth High School boys bested an 18-team field last weekend, and we could not be more proud of you guys. So I have this Mayor's Award. If you guys could come up and get a picture, the whole team up here. If your parents are in the audience, I'd ask them to take some pictures. But let's get going. Great job. You guys keep coming back.
Barely get down the hill. Congratulations, Adam. Proud Papa.
Proud moment.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Great job.
I love that blazer.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Come on, guys, squish in.
This is the best picture that you're ever going to have. For this lady. Put this on LinkedIn profiles. Would you like to say, anybody like to say a few words, Coach? A few words? Sure. Awesome.
We're really fortunate to have terrific staff of coaches, Kim Dedeus, Adam Rudig, alumni Jackson Coyle, and Morgan James, who works in the school district. They get on a bus 3 days a week, go up to the mountains, cold weather, and work with these boys and the girls team as well. And the girls were fortunate to finish 4th in the state this year, so give them some props as well. And you said it, Mayor, the perseverance, the grit to make the decision to be in ski racing, which is very difficult, is a lesson that we could all learn from. So thank you very much for this honor. This is a great group of kids, and everyone in Portsmouth should be happy that these are the future leaders of our community. So thank you very much.
Coach.
You guys want a picture with that?
Congratulations. Great job. Tell them all to sign up for Student Government Day.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Next, Bodie Millers.
Thanks again, Kyle. And thanks to the entire ski team. Great job out there again. We will now open up to public comment. First up is Roy Helsel with Development and Taxes.
Roy Helsel at Middle Road. Good evening. I have a question about, with all the development that we're having in the city, are you researching the water system and the sewage system to handle all of this? Because we're having trouble with our sewage system right now. And that's going to cost the city taxpayers a lot of money. And the other thing is taxes. Are these developers paying to hook up to our water system and all that development that we're doing? And what about the hotels and these big buildings? Are they paying the same level of taxes that the homeowners are paying? Or are we carrying them? Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Next up is Gerald Duffy on housing.
Gerald Duffy, 428 Pleasant Street. I used to live on Middle Street. Mr. Mayor, councillors, I encourage you tonight to jumpstart the creation of a real housing action plan. If you do, it'll be a landmark moment for Portsmouth. You'll be committing the city to a course of action to preserve a community where a broad swath of people can live, from service workers to the very wealthy and everyone else in between. There are lots of obstacles and no guarantees the city will succeed, but we will always be able to say that we tried. Think about what Ruth Lewin Griffith Place actually accomplishes. It's more than providing permanently affordable workforce housing, though it does that really well. It also enables people earning below our median income to live cheek by jowl with much wealthier residents who can afford expensive downtown houses and condos. It's contrast that often brings vigor and vitality to a community. I believe that when Councillor Moreau talks about the value of a balanced community, that's what she means. So we cannot socially engineer Portsmouth, nor should we even want to, but we can set the stage by giving the workers who make our city work a fighting chance to live in the community they serve. Some will disagree with me, but I believe that it is a civic obligation. Even more people will disagree with me, but I also feel it's a moral obligation. So taking such a step will signify some important things. It will signify a political willingness to show some courage, be bold, and to step beyond comfort zones. It'll signify a commitment to preserving, as much as is possible, a community of differences, different jobs, different stages in life, different needs and preferences, different levels of income. And it will signify to communities beyond Portsmouth City's limits, municipalities that share varying aspects of the same housing crisis, that there are ways to tackle problems that have proven to be stubborn, challenging, and for which there are no easy answers, and for which there are always trade-offs. So the creation of the first genuine housing action plan in the state of New Hampshire would set a high bar and would be a feather in your caps as elected officials. And should any of you decide to run for office again, here or on a larger stage, you will have some real bragging rights for directly and transparently taking on the most vexing issue of our day. I have no doubt you'll give it serious consideration. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry. Nice haircut as well. Anybody else? Not seeing anybody on Zoom. Nobody else signed up, so we will move on to public hearings and vote on ordinances and/or resolutions. We have the first reading of ordinance, amending Chapter 1, Administrative Code, Article 4, Commissions and Authorities, Section 1.415, be added to establish a permanent sister city committee.
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading and schedule public hearing and second reading for March 16th, 2026, City Council meeting.
Second. And Your Honor, I do have one amendment. I would like to amend, the Sister City Committee met and we discussed this. And on the original, we'd like to add 9 and 10 to the goals. So I move to amend to add number 9, celebrate Portsmouth historical connections such as Nichinon and the 1905 Peace Treaty and Sant'Angelo and the families who came here. Semicolon, both are unique to the Sister City program and should be honored by permanence. And number 10, demonstrate what it means to be the city of the open door with people-to-people diplomacy that extends for decades into the past and into the future. So those were on the original document that I submitted. They were not included in the public document, in the packet online, or the packet distributed.
Second?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Is the amendment? Okay, and so
Yeah.
we'll have to re-notice first reading for this, or?
No.
No?
It can be just.
Okay, great. Counselor Cook.
I just have a legal question. I'm on the board for the Japan American Society that recognizes the Portsmouth Peace Treaty. Do I need to recuse for this vote? It's in the legal department. It has no financial impact on that board. Okay.
Cue the Bob Sullivan. Does it put money in or take money out of your pocket?
Wanting to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any further discussion on passing first reading and scheduling the second reading with public hearing? Seeing none? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Councilor Blaylock. Next is first reading of ordinance amending Chapter 10 zoning ordinance as follows. Rezone parcel described on the city tax map 209 lot 87 from single residence B, SRB, to Gateway Neighborhood Mixed Use Center, G2, and Article 4, Zoning Districts and Use Regulations, Section 10.440, Use 3.40, Museum to be changed from S, Special Exemption, to P, Permitted in Gateway Neighborhood Mixed Use Corridor, G1 and G2. The zoning maps to be amended are referenced in the City Zoning Ordinance of Chapter 10, Article 4, Zoning and District Use Regulations referenced in the City Zoning Ordinance at Chapter 10, Article 4, Zoning and District Use Regulations, Section 10.421, District Location and Boundaries, Section 10.421.10, collectively the zoning maps.
Your Honor, I move to.
Pass. Sorry. Move to pass first reading and schedule public hearing. And second reading for March 16th at the March 16th, 2026 City Council meeting.
Your Honor, I second.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Moreau?
I'll just bring up, this was a request that we actually got and sent back to the planning board, and this was, after much conversation, what we realized would probably be the most appropriate, because I did actually bring up whether or not it should be considered a civic property versus actually being gateway, and we did discuss that as well, but we ended on the gateway too, so if anybody's interested, can go watch the meeting, we talked about it.
Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor, and I wanted to thank you for putting this forward, because the change to allow museum as a permitted use in Gateway actually benefits not just the Albacore Park, but it benefits the community, because it allows for more museums outside of really what we see mostly in the core of the city, so thank you.
Councilor Moreau?
Just to follow up on that, they actually were permitted by special exception, so we're just now making it permitted outright, so it wasn't a big change.
Every change is a good change.
Well, this does, I mean, we're changing it so that they don't have to come and ask for a special exemption. So we've saved some time
Yep.
for you guys at the planning board, for them worrying about it, so.
No, I just meant it's not a big change to our zoning
Yes,
of what we're
but,
asking.
yeah, but we should still celebrate the fact that we are allowing it to happen without having to have a meeting on it, which is always great.
Yes.
So we will have a meeting on it next week, and hopefully that's the last one, or in March 16th, and that will be the last one that we have on it. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next, first reading of ordinance amending Chapter 10 zoning ordinance to change the zoning designation of the following parcels pursuant to Chapter 10, Article 4, Zoning and District Use Regulations, Section 10.421, District Location and Boundaries, Section 10.421.10 of the zoning ordinance.
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading for March 16th, 2026 City Council meeting.
Second that.
Any discussion? Councilor Tabor?
As with other changes to Gateway, this opens up opportunities for housing that we haven't had before. And you can just look at the Gateway zoning and what it's done for our housing unit growth. So this is a big win.
Excellent. All in favor? Oh, Councilor Moreau.
I'd just like to say I'm slowly working my way to getting rid of some of our old zoning designations. It's a slow crawl, but eventually I'll get there.
It is, yeah. It's, you know, people always wonder, like, why can't we just start from scratch? Well, people bought houses or bought properties with that zoning, so it is sometimes slower than we want because property rights exist, but appreciate the effort that the planning board has taken to this even ahead of the master plan. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, public hearing and adoption of resolution pursuant to RSA 72:35 for the optional veterans tax credit for service-connected total disability. We have
We have a
Roseanne Lentz.
presentation, Your Honor, from Roseanne Lentz and Scott Scott from our assessing. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm here today to discuss some changes that have happened to the tax credit for service-connected total disability through the New Hampshire legislature last year. The City of Portsmouth has previously adopted the following veterans tax credits, and I just wanted to go over all of them real quick as for people that are viewing them, just in case they don't know about them.
Certainly.
We have the optional veterans tax credit, which is RSA 7228. The city offers it at $750,000, which is the maximum amount. The all veterans tax credit, RSA 7228B, which is $750, which is the maximum amount. The tax credit currently for the service-connected total disability is $4,000, max amount. The surviving spouse of a veteran who has passed away during war or during active duty, $2,000. And then certain disabled vets, which this is a specially adapted house by the Veterans Administration, is receives 100% adjustment on their assessment, so no taxes. So during the 2025 legislative session, the New Hampshire General Court passed and Governor Ayotte signed into law House Bill 99 amending RSA 7235, which is the service-connected total disability tax credit. This law became effective July 13th, 2025, changing the maximum amount of the optional tax credit for those veterans receiving the service-connected total disability tax credit. So what has changed? The statute changed to emphasize that the tax credit for service-connected total disability is for persons who have a total and permanent, which was added, service-connected disability. The tax credit for service-connected total disability may no longer be claimed in addition to other veterans' tax credits. And the maximum amount of the optional tax credit for the service-connected total disability may be increased from $4,000 to $5,000. Reasons for amending the optional tax credit within the city of Portsmouth. Currently, the city grants $4,000 for those veterans who qualify for the optional tax credit for service credit total disability. Along with the $4,000 last year, these individuals could stack this credit with the optional veterans tax credit, allowing them to receive a total tax credit for a veteran of $4,750. Now the law does not allow that. If the city does not amend the optional tax credit for service-connected total disability, 50 veterans who received both credits last year will see a $750 increase in their tax bills. So we brought forward 3 options. 1, amend the total tax credit to $4,750, which they're currently receiving for both credits. Amend the total tax credit for connected total disability to the new maximum amount of $5,000, or you can make no adjustment and they will just receive the $4,000 for this coming December's tax bill. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Roseanne. Any questions for Roseanne? Councilor Bagley.
Thanks, Your Honor. I don't know if maybe this is the right time, just looking at all of the things before us tonight. Generally, I'm supportive of us having the highest, or nearly the highest exemptions in the state and increasing with the Social Security COLA, or, moving forward the numbers. The one that I have maybe more concerns about, and not necessarily for next year, but just in general, is the assets. Currently, I believe it's $500,000, which doesn't include your...
Oh, so we just got to get to that one.
Just talking about veterans right now.
Yep, so just veterans.
Sorry.
No worries.
You're jumping ahead.
I knew where you were going now.
We're getting there. So, we have 3 options to do nothing, which the current tax exemption is up to $4,000. We can increase it to either $4,700 or to $5,000, which is now the maximum increase in the state. Councilor Blaylock.
Thank you. I just want to ask Roseanne one question. How many veterans are currently take advantage of this exemption?
Of the service-connected, 50.
50?
Yeah, 50. I think we have a total of 720 veterans in the city.
Okay.
And out of that, 50 are service-connected, totally disabled.
Thank you.
Was that the same question, Councilor Cook? Yep. Well, we have, we'll have a public hearing on this if there's no further council questions until after. So I will open the public hearing to speak to, for, or against the options that are presented in front of us. Seeing no one rise and no one on Zoom, I will close the public hearing and wait additional council questions or deliberations. Councilor Cook.
Your Honor, I move to amend the optional tax credit for service-connected total disability to $5,000 as of April 1st, 2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Councilor Blaylock.
I think we should always look after our veterans. The veterans, they've dedicated their life to serving their country. The sacrifices they've made, the least we can do is give them the maximum amount on this. We always claim, we're pretty proud of our veterans in Portsmouth, but I think we can take care of them.
Indeed. Sister Mayor?
Just a question. With the changing of the wording and adding the word permanent in the bill, are there any veterans that currently receive this that would be removed or disqualified
We would have to, there is a certain letter that they have to receive from the Veterans Administration that states permanent. So we would have to review everything to make sure it states that.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that the majority of them do have that in there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And as a part of this, reaching out to veterans organizations, Councilor Denton did a great job of advocating on behalf of this. That will be important for us to, provide this along with the changes that would be required from a documentation standpoint through, the VFW, the Legion, as well as the Elks Lodge that does a lot of veterans outreach in the community to make sure that they're aware of this. Seeing no further questions or comments, I will, do we need I don't think we need a roll call on this.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed, and the tax credit is now at $5,000. Next, we are the public hearing and adoption of resolution pursuant to RSA 72:39-B regarding the elder exemption on assessed value for qualified taxpayers.
If I could help set the stage, Roseanne has a presentation for both elderly and disabled exemptions. She's also come up with a pretty creative fourth option, which, if supported by the council, would require a renoticing of this matter. So we could certainly hold the public hearing tonight because we posted it as such, but we would also hold another public hearing at the March 2nd meeting. Roseanne,
Thank you.
take it.
So annually, the city of Portsmouth reviews the income and asset levels. And do we have the presentation?
Sorry. Working on it. Add it.
It's okay.
Gotta share, though. That's my problem, not sharing.
Sharing's caring.
Sharing is caring. What happened?
Sharing is caring.
Sorry, give me a second.
And that button.
That's the one I want. Here we go. Apologies, here we go.
There we go. Okay, so annually, the city of Portsmouth reviews income and asset levels for both the elderly and disabled exemption and makes recommendations as to these levels pursuant to RSA 7237B and 7239B. Last year, the City Council increased the income levels for elderly and disabled taxpayers to the following levels. Income for single, $55,534. Income for married, $72,804, and assets, $500,000. And these income levels were increased based on the 2.84 increase for 2024 levels, based on the 10-year rolling average of the November to November Boston, Cambridge, Newton CPI. At the January 20th, 2026 City Council meeting, the City of Portsmouth Assessor's Office recommended 3 options for the City Council to consider. Option 1 was to adjust the income limits reflective of the 2026 increase for Social Security recipients of 2.8% as follows. Single, $57,089, an increase of $1,555 over last year. Married, $74,843, an increase of $2,039 over last year, and keep the current asset limits the same. Option 2 was to adjust the limits reflective of the increases in the November to November Boston, Cambridge, Newton, Massachusetts, New Hampshire Consumer Price Index of 2.77% as follows. For single, $57,072, an increase of $1,538. Married, $74,821, an increase of $2,017, and no asset, and keep the asset limit the same as $500,000. The other option was to do nothing and leave the levels the same as they are. So I went back and I wanted to review some things, and what I did is I went and reviewed the denials for 2024 and 2025. And this slide doesn't really explain that. I'm going to more verbalize this, but then it will reference some things in this slide. So I looked at those elderly and disabled that were denied for tax years 2024 and 2025. These denials indicated that out of 30 of those that applied, 16 taxpayers were denied having a median income of $60,385 and assets of $169,267. As you can see, they were over on their income, really low on the assets. Majority of these people are living off of their assets because out of those individuals, almost majority of them were 80 and over. The married income was $82,209 and the assets were $183,000. And again, of those, the oldest group had the highest median income of $64,210, but they had the lowest assets of $119. So they had been withdrawing on their assets with supplemental income. So now they basically have nothing left over in their assets at 80 years old. So they were near the end of their savings. I also looked at those that were denied due to assets. I looked at the 6 elderly and disabled that were denied for 2024 and 2025. 5 single taxpayers had median assets of $628,000, but had a median income of $41,000, well below. The 1 married taxpayer had assets of $520,000 with an income of $56,000. Of those, the highest level of assets fell between the ages of 64 and 79, which is expected because that will draw down when they get to 80. I also looked at the average Social Security, which is $33,000 reported, the median household income and median per capita income reported for the city of Portsmouth. I found the median household income reported for the city of Portsmouth was $101,087, and the median per capita income was $69,407. And I think this is based on a 2023 report. To try and meet those income levels with the elderly that are on a fixed income and receiving Social Security based on the current median of $33,000 for single and doubling it to $66,000 for married taxpayers, taxpayers would need to have $750,000 in a savings account earning 5% interest and withdrawing $45,000 per year to meet the current median household and current per capita income levels reported for the city of Portsmouth. Their savings would be exhausted at age 87, and I have quite a few 90-year-olds on receiving this exemption. So to catch up, I propose $65,000 income for singles, $85,000 for married, $750,000 asset limits. Only the interest received from an asset is considered income for calculating the elderly exemption. The withdrawal of the asset of the $45,000 reduces the asset requirement. And also the possibility that because you're reducing your asset, you're also reducing your income interest level, so it will also reduce your income at the same time. So that's why I brought forward on the next slide these option 4, based on my research, based on what I feel that if you want your elderly to meet those median income and asset levels within the city as reported, this is what I feel they need to at least try to catch up. It doesn't meet it, but it's giving it a bump.
Thank you, Roseanne. Any questions for Roseanne? Councilor Bagley.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I guess looking at this, I agree with the option 4 increases for the annual incomes. I have more concern with the asset levels increasing by $250,000, just because, you know, the way I look at these is we want to keep people in their homes and not be forced to leave their homes. But at the same time, any tax relief we're giving this group is borne by the rest of the residents. And we have a lot of younger families that are you know, they're housing burdened by the cost of their housing. So, you know, there's a balance to be struck between making sure that people can stay in their homes and making sure that taxes aren't too high on everyone else. And I don't know if increasing to $750,000 instead of $500,000, if that tips the scale or not.
Well, if you look at the amount of people that are qualifying for the elderly exemption right now, the majority of them are over 80. So if you look at the individuals, and let me just get my MS1 out if I have it with me. Oh, I think I wrote it down. Yeah. So the individuals that are receiving the elderly exemption between the ages of 65 and 74, we have 36 in the city of Portsmouth. Between the ages of 75 and 79, 37. Between the ages of 80 and over, 79. So the majority of our elderly exemptions are 80 and over. So their assets are depleting to basically nothing by the time they hit 80. My concern with not looking at this in a different way, which your way is very relevant, but an 80-year-old has no other way to make a supplemental income except for their savings. Whereas when you're 65, you're still able to work. When you're younger, you're still able to work. So my concern here is how many 80-year-olds we have in the city of Portsmouth that have not come in to qualify for this exemption. And that's what my goal is to try and capture the older elderly to qualify. $750,000 is not a lot of money when you think about what you're going to need to survive for 20 to 25 years. And remember that out of that $750,000, that's strict supplemental income that does not take into account capital improvements needed for a house over 20 years. You're going to need a roof, a new heater, siding, windows. So that $750,000 is just being looked at as supplemental income, not any capital improvements needed for a home over the course of retirement.
So the Assistant Mayor, and Councilor Burrow, and Councilor Cook.
Thank you. Roseanne, what is your projected, or do you have a projected impact on the tax rate if this was passed, given the amount of denials and the information and that metric that you have pulled from your research?
So I'm estimating based on what I see that if we have 20% more individuals coming in receiving the full exemption amount, it's about 4 cents on the tax rate, additional 4 cents. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cents total. Okay. But I mean, this is just a suggestion. You can incrementally increase that amount of the asset to see what happens over the course of time, because it is a big jump, and I understand that. But this was just my research that I wanted to bring forward. And it was just really eye-opening when I looked at how many people were being denied and barely not qualifying for this exemption, because we're increasing it by Social Security 2.5%, and these people that aren't qualifying are also getting that increase. So every year they can't qualify because they're also getting those same increases. So we're trying to just capture a little bit more here and trying to look at where everybody else is in the city of Portsmouth and what they're surviving on, and have the elderly have that same ability.
Councilor Burrow?
Can you help us better understand when you're looking at assets, what you're including in that bucket?
This asset, I'm just looking at pure savings.
So it's not including like value of their house?
Right, the value of the home is not included as part of your asset. But, it's just pure savings to look at how much they would be.
Retirement accounts.
Right, retirement accounts. Doesn't include any other real estates, and typically anybody that has real estate holdings isn't qualifying for this elderly exemption.
Any further? Councilor Cook?
Thank you, Your Honor. So what I'm hearing you say is that retirees are starting out with about $750,000, and so they're not qualifying in those early years, and they're drawing down their savings, and so they start qualifying when they're 80, but by then they have so little left, they only have enough money to last another 5, 6, 7 years.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Bagley?
If you have your house is not included as an asset, say somebody had a mortgage on their house for $250,000, would that count as a negative equity towards their assets?
No.
Because it counts against
It doesn't count towards monthly bill.
Yeah. So, Roseanne, we want to thank you for pulling this together. A quick reminder that, this doesn't completely alleviate property taxes. You qualify for an exemption off, and I was reading it again. It's $375,000 off the value of your home at 65. 75, it moves up to 450, and then 80 and over, it's at 525. And those are state, limits in terms of what is available to us. In some communities, that can mean, no taxes at all. In some communities like ours, that still means taxes. What I like about this is that it takes into account that somebody earlier on, if they would want to retire, at least from the calculations that I'm looking at, I'm behind on retirement because I make poor decisions in terms of, where I spend my time, city here. But in terms of, retirement calculators, that's not enough to actually, necessarily retire on. And so those seniors are often continuing to work during that to supplement their income if they haven't grown the nest egg, to that level. I believe that this will allow those earliers to qualify in a way that is allowing them to stay in their home. Obviously, those that have millions of dollars of assets or well prepared for retirement are looking at this. They'll be looked at differently. The other thing when it comes to asset limits, the amount of conversations that I've had with folks that have come into City Hall that are hopeful each time that we pass an update to this. They're like, okay, I heard that you increased it, but because it's tied to Social Security, each time they're right on the edge and they're chasing something that unless we take slightly more drastic measures to account for it, they're never going to be able to qualify. And I think that the hardest thing that we end up discussing here as a city is we had a speaker at public comment that mentioned this, but after the last revaluations where residential really kind of increased the amount that it was valued at versus commercial, it shifted the tax burden on. And while we've kept budgets over the last 10 years at a 4% increase, they could have had a much higher increase due to the fact that their home is now a bigger part of our tax pie than it was previously. That's a shock to many people, and it's especially a shock at retirement to be able to account for something and then to see something, even if we're doing the best we can to keep budgets flat and predictable and aligned with Social Security increases, their home could become more valuable simply because of the place that they live in Portsmouth. I don't think that this is going to stop, folks that, have a lot of means from being able to, sell and maximize their capital assets and maybe downsize. But for those that don't have that option, that would not qualify for another home can stay in Portsmouth. And so I'll be supporting the option to be able to increase the limits to include more people within this elderly exemption, recognizing that the values of the homes, it still doesn't cover what we expect. Folks are still paying a tax bill, but to be able to take off what has kind of been thrust upon them over the last revaluations to no fault of your department whatsoever. It's simply the fact is they've valued up higher than the commercial office space. This is a way to kind of right that deviation and keep folks in their homes and a part of the community. So thank you, Roseanne, for bringing this forward. And I think that if we vote on this, we can, I guess we should, if folks have come to the public hearing, we should have the public hearing, open that, but note that this will have to be renoticed and resubmitted for second reading at the next council date.
I just wanted to assure the city council that when we look at individuals' assets, we have a lot of research tools that we make sure that people qualify for this exemption can really qualify for this exemption. We research everything that we can to make sure that nobody is saying that they're only making $750,000 if that's where you want to go when they actually have $1 million. We can find out.
I trust that you can. I also trust that it's the laws are the laws. If they're over on the income limits and the amount of folks that have told me like that they have just missed and I've had some of those conversations, and it's a difficult proposition. And I understand Councilor Bagley's point in terms of shifting this on to everyone else. I would love for us to be able to have something that we could take a homeowner's exemption, but this is something that we can do that's going to target towards those folks that have a real need here and that are facing very difficult decisions where somebody that's getting a pension, they're qualifying for this differently versus the value of the pension in their retirement versus a 401k and the retirement accounts. This allows kind of to right that wrong. Councillor Cook, a question before?
No, I'll wait till after
All
public
right,
hearing.
so we'll open the public hearing. 2 for against, and again, option 4 not listed here would require a second public hearing, or a second reading.
Good evening, Council. Tyler Garzo, 62 McKinley. I just wanted to speak on this one briefly. It does seem like a very sticky topic, and it's a matter that me and my cohort are paying for, many of whom are just excluded from Portsmouth because they can't buy into the housing market. I think Councillor Bagley is really onto something here. What you're proposing with option 4 is effectively a $1.5 million exemption on assets, $750,000 in assets, and house value of around $750,000. If you look at what houses are going for these days, they're selling like hotcakes. They're really expensive. Everybody wants one. There's ordinance coming up allowing for ADUs. This is an important tool, and downsizing is also important. Sound financial planning is absolutely a part of adult life, and this one just doesn't quite sit right with me as a younger taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Any other speakers 2 for against? Seeing none, we'll have to, how does this work? Do we extend, we'll renotice it and we'll have another public hearing.
Yep.
But in terms of this public hearing, we close this public hearing because we'll have another one if option 4 passes. Closing the public hearing. Councillor Cook.
Your Honor, I move to schedule a public hearing on the elderly and disabled tax exemptions for March the 2nd.
Second.
Councillor Cook.
I just want to make sure that's enough time to notice it.
I think it is. Do we have 10
Yeah.
clear days?
Yes, we would.
Any other discussions in that we could take up option 4 on there?
Did you want to amend it so it comes back for the public hearing with the option 4?
Oh, yes. I would amend my motion to say that we should schedule a hearing on the elderly and disabled tax exemptions for March the 2nd that includes option 4.
I think March 3rd is our meeting date.
Is it March 3rd?
Second, okay.
There's a second to that? Second agrees?
Yep, second. Agree.
Any further comment, consideration before, questions? Councillor Blaylock?
Thank you, Your Honor. No, I just think it's important to take in the information that Roseanne has given us this evening. I always think it's important to look after our most sensitive populations of Portsmouth, especially those that have been here the whole time and have, helped build the community. But, and as you always said, Mayor, your house can't work for you. I think I learned that from you or from your father. But so I think it is appropriate to add this option 4 and have another public hearing.
I would say that, if there's ways that we can consider ADUs, as a part of, solution in terms of, creating optionality here, that would be great. But I never want to put in a position, and sound financial planning is always important. I think that the conversation that we have in Portsmouth is a rapidly appreciating housing market that has shifted the burden of taxation, at least over the last 2 years coming out of COVID, more onto the residential than the commercial. That has impacts in terms of the taxes that people pay. And certainly one, I've heard that, those folks should downsize. Downsizing might mean leaving the community, might mean, picking up and not being able to find, an option here. That's, I can't see that as our sound housing policy is to force seniors from their homes. This is a significant increase in the assets. It's also a significant increase in the income. But I believe that those changes are justified, given what we've seen over the last 5 years. And when we looked at, it would be great, Roseanne, if we could have, as a part of the presentation, some of the income limits that we're not qualified for, and seeing just how close people are to, having absolutely no assets in there. And again, from starting it from 65, we will allow, and that is a graduated increase in there. So it allows more people to qualify, but at a lower amount of house valuation. And that's something that I think, in terms of planning, as people plan, they should plan for their taxes to be relative to the budgets that are increasing. And right now, in our state, that's not the case because of revaluations. So I'll support this and look forward to having the public conversation on it at March 2nd. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed. Sorry, Councilor Bagley. Your Honor, if I can have the floor with counsel for a second. City Attorney Morrill, looking at the calendar, we would not have 10 clear days on March 2nd. So with the approval of council, we would actually need to bring it forward for the March 16th meeting.
Does that still give you enough time to message and work with folks, Roseanne?
The deadline is April 15th,
Okay.
so it'll give us 30 days. It should be good. I mean, I won't hold anything for the elderly until we have this voted on, but yeah, it should be okay.
Thanks for checking, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome.
As amended, March 16th. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you, June. And we will do the same conversation for the, let's see, where are we?
That was
No, I think
E and
we
F.
put it together.
We're on to
right?
G.
We're on to G. Okay, public hearing and second reading of ordinance amendment chapter 10. No, we on to, we on, didn't do E. We got to do the, is this for, did we just do the?
It was together.
E and F.
Elderly.
She did elderly
Did both.
and
Oh,
disabled.
but we did, oh, and we did
I did
disabled?
both. The motion
Okay,
did both.
all right, great.
Combine them.
Okay. G, public hearing and second reading of ordinance amendment to chapter 10, zoning ordinance be amended as follows. Article 5, dimensional intensity standards, section 10.515.14, power generators. Article 15, definitions, section 10.1530, terms of general applicability, amending building coverage, mechanical system, power generation, and structure.
Your Honor, we have Peter Stith, our Assistant Planning Director, with a series of small, short presentations.
Yes, you all are moving right along tonight, so I'll keep that going. We do have 4 public hearings tonight on zoning amendments, all of which were referred from the Planning Board's November 20th, 25 meeting, and the first one is on mechanical systems, as the mayor read. This is really a cleanup from the amendments. If you can go to the next slide, please. From the amendments that were made last March that related to fences, small accessory structures, and specific to mechanical units, where we have historically seen many requests at the Board of Adjustment for relief that is always granted. So the idea was to remove this from the ordinance so that people would not have to keep continuing to go to the zoning board for variances for HVAC units and such. Upon further review of the ordinance and talking with the Fire and Inspections Department, they do have requirements for power generators separate from air conditioners and HVAC units, where they require a 5-foot set off or offset from openings and lot lines. So to be consistent with the fire code, and it's good to be, when we can, to be with other codes, we've proposed that a definition for power generators, which requires a 5-foot setback. If you go to the next slide, this shows where the ordinance, where we've added the definitions for mechanical system and power generator, and then have mechanical units, or mechanical systems, excuse me, exempt from yard requirements, and then we've added that setback for power generators. We've revised the definition of structure so that these are not considered structures, and also the definition of building coverage so they don't count towards building coverage. I would add that the item E of building coverage, as it's written, it says mechanical system and then in parentheses HVAC, comma, power generator. I don't think this is a substantive change to bring power generator out as a separate item F. I think it's just clarifying that list. I would look to the city attorney. I think it's listed. I think it's just separating them so that since we have definitions of both, that they're separately listed.
Right, so you could just say,
We would have E, mechanical system, and then F, power generator, instead of,
and the E would be i.e. HVAC?
It would be the definition right here.
I think that could be struck. That's no longer relevant, the HVAC reference.
Great. I would agree, it's not a substantial change.
And so that concludes the presentation on that, if you have any questions.
Any questions on this? Councilor Morales shaking her head, that means the planning board's okay with it. That's good. Appreciate the work that went into this and being able to disallow or disinclude them as structures that will help in terms of building lot coverage, especially being able to have this go forth without having to get an exemption will save a lot of time. And homeowners that want to do this work, it will, hopefully unburden your department as well, having to walk folks through that, which is often the first time they've gone through that in non-conforming lots. We will now have the public hearing. 2 for or against changes. Seeing no one rise. Nobody on Zoom. I will close the public hearing. Any additional council questions and deliberations?
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading and schedule public hearing and second reading for the March 16th, 2026 City Council.
Wait.
It's second reading. I move to pass second reading.
Yeah.
Schedule third and final reading on March 16th, 2026.
Second?
Any further discussion? Great. So what we're doing is we're taking these things out of lot coverage. That's a positive because they will be able to, you'll be able to do them with, the inspections that happen, fire, et cetera, but not having to go before the ZBA asking for an approval to put in a HVAC unit. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to bring forward third and final reading.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I make the motion to have third and final reading tonight.
Second.
Can't think of the date.
Any discussion?
Can I
pass.
interrupt
To
for
pass.
just a second?
City attorney?
So, included in your motion was the amendment as proposed by Peter Stiff?
Yes.
As amended?
As amended.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any discussion? And again, this is taking it from third and final reading. And we typically do this when there's no real discussion on the matter, as there's not been one that is kind of like an easy win. We will give time for a third reading when there's substantial debate, or we want to make sure that folks that have not come here before, but seeing that this is a cleanup and it's gone through a couple of different passes at the planning board, this would be the perfect time to do it. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On to H, public hearing and second reading of ordinance amended to Chapter 10, zoning ordinance be amended as follows. Article 1, purpose and applicability, Section 10.122, Section 1, sustainability objectives. Article 4, zoning and use regulations. Section 10.440, amending table of uses for ground-mounted solar energy systems. Article 8, supplemental use standards. Section 10.811, amending accessory uses to permitted residential uses. And Article 15, definitions. Section 10.1530, terms of general applicability, amending solar energy systems and structure.
Your Honor, I move to pass first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading
Sorry.
for the.
This is the second reading. It's another
Yes,
issue.
sorry.
Sorry.
And my
Peter's
con-
got a very quick
Yep.
Have a presentation.
presentation.
We'll have the presentation, we'll come back to the,
It's also my contact.
yeah,
Yes.
we're all on the same.
All right.
Peter, take it away.
So this originally was referred to the planning board in December 2024, and I apologize to former Councilor Denton to not get this back before he got off the council, so hopefully he's watching at home maybe. But simply put, we do allow solar throughout the city as an accessory use. These amendments really bring in solar, ground-mounted solar as a principal use, and clarify, add some definitions for roof-mounted and ground-mounted solar. As proposed by the planning board, a ground-mounted system that is a principal use, so it would be the only thing on a lot, or would exceed a certain amount of the lot, as proposed by conditional use permit in the rural single residence A and B, mixed residential business, general business, gateway 1 and 2, office research, industrial, and waterfront industrial. And I think the reasoning is that because of those are typically the districts that have larger lots that could provide for the area for a ground-mounted solar system. Next slide. There are also amendments to Article 8, which talks about accessory uses to permitted residential uses. So this is specifically for residential houses. It doesn't relate to commercial. We already allow it as an accessory use. This is just, clarifying that we do. And then it adds in the ground-mounted solar panels, and just that they are limited to a 25% of the principal structure's footprint, so that they are truly remain accessory. The roof-mounted could cover all of the structures on a lot. If you have outbuildings, you could cover them with solar, but the ground-mounted would be limited to 25% of the principal structure's footprint, so that it remains accessory. And that's the summary of these amendments. If you have any questions.
Any discussion on this? Councilor Tabor.
The Energy Advisory Committee reviewed this with the help of Jillian Harris and voted to recommend the council approve the ordinance change as a way to make all of these home solar installations just easier and by right.
Councilor Cook.
I just wanted to thank our planning department for the work that went into this. I know that we've been meeting for a few years to discuss these changes. It's challenging because there are, of course, different viewpoints on what primary use looks like for ground-mounted solar in different areas, and I think this is a huge step forward for the city of Portsmouth, so thank you.
I will add that this would have gotten us, in the city manager's comments, it mentions the Soul Smart. We have the bronze. Jillian Harris contacted them, but their funding ran out in January, so I think this would have bumped us up to a silver level, but they're no longer funded, so.
Ain't we all, Peter?
Councilor Blaylock and Councilor
Thank you. I can assure you from Councilor Denton himself, he thanks you very much for getting this forward. But certainly myself, I'm always supportive of any solar and in Portsmouth and renewable energy. Thank you.
Councilor Moreau.
I'd just like to say that, thank you for the patience of the council, because we did take a long time looking at this. But one of the reasons were we also had a new member join the planning board who actually has a background. This is what he does for a living. So it was really nice to be able to wait and get his feedback, especially on the, permitted being the only use versus just a subject use. So that was nice to be able to really feel like we could get a really good working of this. And I'd also like to bring up something that I learned recently by asking the city manager, is because I found it out in another community in my day job, is that, and I don't know how many people in our community actually know this, but if you have solar panels on your house and they increase the value of your house, you actually can get a tax exemption on the value based off of that. So I just wanted to make sure that that was put out there, because I feel like I don't know if everyone that has solar actually knows that.
Although the legislature wants to take that away.
That's right. Hey, I'm we hope not.
Any more questions for Mr. Stith? Seeing none, we will open the public hearing to speak to for or against this amendment or this zoning, second hearing on amendments to the zoning.
Good evening again. Tyler Garzo, 62 McKinley. Nice work to you all. This is a wonderful thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tyler. Any other speakers? None rising, none on Zoom. Going to close the public hearing. Any additional council questions or deliberations, and if we will have a motion?
Your Honor, I would now like to move to pass second reading and schedule public hearing and third and final reading for March 16th, 2026.
Sorry, we did the public hearing. Sorry. It's
Oh,
just
yeah,
third.
ignore me. Okay.
Second?
Okay, great.
No public hearing.
Any further questions, deliberations? Councilor Blaylock.
I'll just add, you know, I worked with Councilor Denton on the Genia Solar in the historic district. So I know you've been texting with him. He's happy to see this come before the council. I just want to thank everyone for all the work that they've done. I'm glad to hear that we have experts on the ZBA, the planning board, to offer their expert opinion. But I think, you know, anything in renewable energy and getting out of the way and allowing our residents to do that, you know, saves money and it helps the environment.
Any other, and I'd echo the comments of Councilor Blaylock for Councilor Denton and his work on this, and also Tom Morgan, citizen, had many conversations with this on, pushed us, you know, not necessarily as fast, but there's a lot that goes into that. This one was very complicated, and being able to deliver this today is, you know, second best to, you know, a couple of years ago, but happy to see that this is moved forward to be able to take advantage of where we can go with solar here. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Your Honor, I'd make a motion to suspend the rules and to pass third and final reading.
Second.
Any further discussion?
We're going to suspend the rules first.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now, Your Honor, I would make the motion to pass third and final reading.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next up is public hearing and second reading of ordinance amendment chapter 10, zoning ordinance be amended as follows. Article 8, supplemental use standards, section 10.814, accessory dwelling units, amending ordinance to comply with state law, and amendments to Article 4, zoning and use regulations, section 10.440, amending table of uses for accessory dwelling units. We have first a presentation from Peter.
All right, thank you. So the next two hearings are about amendments that we need to make to comply with state code. And this one has a few more slides, but I think the end result is beneficial to the community. We've changed the ADU regulations a couple times. Councilor Merlo is well aware of and has put in a lot of work doing so, but the new law basically says that the combination of a single-family dwelling and an ADU cannot have more requirements than you would treat just a single-family dwelling. So where in our current ordinance we have a lot of standards and regulations that go above that are specific to an ADU, we have to basically treat them like it's a single-family dwelling. So if you go to the next slide, this is kind of a summary of the amendments. The law requires that you cannot require an ADU smaller than 750 square feet. So that's the minimum size for an ADU. And so we have, in our use tables, we have a bunch of different categories for types of ADUs. You'll see in the draft ordinance, those are all struck, and we just have one use line item for an ADU attached or detached at 750 square feet. You have to allow them by right in all districts that permit 700 single-family dwellings. We currently have a conditional use permit process, so that has been removed, as well as all the specific standards to ADUs related to setbacks, height, architectural guidelines, and footprint. In addition, for the ones that we currently have that are by right, we have an administrative approval process that involves or includes a noticing to abutters. So that has been removed. And currently you have to have a indoor means of egress to the ADU as well as an exterior. So the new law requires that you can have either, and it's up to the applicant to decide which one they want. The law also states that you must allow the conversion of an existing non-conforming structure into an ADU without a variance. Granted, if you increase the height or expand the footprint, that would require a variance, but just simply converting an existing structure to an ADU, say it's in the setback, that can be allowed by right. Next slide. So some of the requirements that we have on the books now that will remain, the law states that you can't require more than one. I mean, you can limit the number of bedrooms. So we currently limit to 2 bedrooms, and that remains. You can still require 1 parking space for the ADU. There is still the owner occupancy requirement, so that the owner has to live in either the ADU or their principal dwelling, and it has to be their primary place of residence. They cannot be converted into condos. And then we have a certificate of use and an annual renewal process to reach out to applicants and say, hey, is this all still the case? You still own it? And so that still remains in place. This next slide has 2 options that the planning board did not, well, they considered, but they did not move forward. The law allows where it says that the minimum size of an ADU is 750 square feet, but a municipality may increase to 950 or more if you write it into the code. In addition, you could allow more than 1 ADU on a lot. I think the planning board felt that the current size of 750 has worked well. Many of the ADUs we see are well under that size and don't even reach the 750 square feet. So I think they were comfortable keeping it the minimum at 750 as well as the maximum at 750. And then keeping it to 1 per lot. And you will see on the next slide, this is just tracking our ADUs since 2016. And if you look in 2025, we've had 13, and you go to the next slide. Since July 1, since this law became enacted, we've had 10 ADUs submitted for building permits. And so basically they just submit for a building permit, and when the people find that out, they're very happy that they don't have to go through any process. I mean, we've been kind of instituting this law because it went into effect in July. So we've had 10, 9 detached and 1 attached since July 1st.
Love that.
So that ends that presentation. I'll take any questions.
Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. Why are we eliminating the administrative approval process?
Because we can't require that. We have to treat it like it's a single-family dwelling, and we don't have that for a single-family dwelling, so we can't put that additional regulation onto an ADU. I mean, there'll be a zoning review through the building permit, but there's not an administrative approval process that we currently have.
Councilor Bagley and Councilor Moreau.
Thank you, Your Honor. 2 quick questions. The first is, do we anticipate updating the ADU handbook with these changes once it's all passed?
Yes, and currently we just, we had a flow chart that we just updated and sent to Monty today. So we've revised that so we can get that posted. The ADU handbook will change. There's a lot of great illustrations that are still relevant, but a lot of the stuff that's in our ordinance now we'll have to just take out. So we're working on that. I think over the next couple months, get that updated and back online.
Thank you. And I guess the second one is a comment. I moved to get rid of the parking space requirement the first time we passed this, and that failed, and I don't anticipate a change, so I'm not going to make that motion unless somebody else thinks it's a good idea. But I always think housing is more important than parking.
Is there a way that there would be, agree on that? It's also just the neighbors that don't have any street parking at the moment, or parking within there, they might have a disagreement on that, whereas, my neighborhood, everybody parks in front of my house if they want to, and there's no issue with that. Is there a way to carve out the street parking or the parking requirement by, I guess, intensity where there is a limit to supply of parking?
Well, the next public hearing speaks to
Yes, speaks to parking, so maybe we could
reducing
wait and talk
parking. So
then.
Perfect. All right. Let's do
We're
that.
about to change parking. Yeah.
I'm just checking.
But Your Honor, I'd
Okay,
like to.
Councilor Moreau, give us
I'd
the
like-
perspective of the planning board
Well,
here.
no, I'd just like to respond to Kate's question, Councilor Cook, about the administrative approval. We put that in place because we had a lot of subjective criteria in our ordinance, and we wanted to make sure we really started by saying, we're just going to allow you to permit it. But then we started to talk about, and there was a lot of feedback from the public that really wanted a checks and balances to make sure they're actually within this sort of subjective criteria. And that's what the administrative approval does. But this is much more cut and dry. You're so many feet, so there's really, all they have to do is check and make sure that they're aligned with zoning.
Thank you for that clarification, because my concern was that you'd have to go to the zoning board or the planning board for a permit, that you wouldn't have just an administrative approval anymore.
It
So
has to be
if it's
permitted.
permitted, it's permitted. That's what I'm
Right,
trying
right.
to verify. And I have on the parking question. We are talking about parking in just a second, but my understanding is that any dwelling unit cannot require more than one parking spot. So if you had an accessory dwelling unit and prior to that you had a house that required 2 parking spots, now your house only requires 1 parking spot, so it's going to reduce the requirement anyway down.
Right,
So,
correct.
so essentially, you're eliminating the parking requirement, because most housing already requires 2. So,
You pull it out then.
All right. Okay, so any other questions on that? And again, we do recall the ADU, just a backstory. We had a long conversation about ADUs, tried to make it all just permitted. There's a lot of feedback on the types of ADUs that would go in there. And so we had subjective standards that, if met, would be administratively approved, so you didn't have to go through that. Now those are all gone, so there's no requirement for administrative approvals. We would expect more ADUs. I think the handbook is still good so that folks can understand what those requirements from a zoning relief or a zoning standpoint are going to be, and I'd expect that to be there, because I honestly don't think anybody's going to believe that there's less rules to do it. So having that printed out in a way for people to understand will be helpful and guide them through the process of what they need or not. But hopefully they're not surprised about this when they come in with one. They're just simply doing it because they know the process. So appreciate the work that will go into that. Councilor Cook.
thank you, Your Honor. The one other question I have is on the 750 square feet, which my understanding is coming from state law. So what if you have an accessory unit already, but you cannot fit 750 square feet in that unit, and that's what's allowed just by right? Do you have to get a variance to do an expansion to meet the 750 square feet?
So the 750, it can be smaller. It could be 400 square feet. We just can't require that a certain size be less than 750. We couldn't say, have a use for a 500 square foot ADU. So you can certainly, most of them are under 750 square feet.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm just trying to make sure it didn't exclude
Nope.
the smaller, yeah.
All right. With that, we can open it up to the public hearing. Speak to for against the amendments or the changes to the ADU laws.
I think our ratings are really dropping.
They are. All right. I will now close the public hearing. Any additional council questions or deliberations?
Mayor, I'll move to pass the second reading and hold a third and final reading on March 2nd, 2026.
Second?
Any further discussion? Well, look forward to the work that's going to go into this, and appreciate the work that you've already put in. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Your Honor, I'd like to suspend the rules and bring forward third and final reading.
Second? Give it to Rich.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'd like to make a motion to pass third and final reading.
Second?
Any further discussion? And again, for those that have just come into this in the last and didn't catch the beginning, this is something that we're already doing, complying with state law. This is this is aligning this with state law. So third and final reading, totally justified. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are at the last public hearing. Public hearing and second reading of ordinance amended to Chapter 10, zoning ordinance, Article 11, site development standards, Section 10.1112.311, off-street parking requirements. And we have another presentation.
All right.
Peter Stitt.
This is just a two-slider, so, Senate Bill 284 was revised to state that the municipality shall not require more than one residential parking space per unit. Currently, or before, this went into effect in September. And if you go to the next slide, please. Before we had, basically, if you had a unit that's less than 500 square feet, it's half a space. Between 500 and 750, it's one space. And then over 750 is 1.3 spaces. And per our parking guidelines, you have to round up. So basically, if you have 1.3, you have to have 2 spaces. The revisions say that if it's 500 square feet or less, it's half a space. And then anything over that would just require 1 space. And that is the summary of the change.
And so because of the 1.3, that meant that we had 2 parking parking spaces for every unit that was over a certain level, including any single-family residents that would be applying for an ADU. They are now at 1 space for them and could have another space for that.
Right. Typically, they would end up before they would have to have 3 spaces, and now we'll only have to have 2.
Any questions for Peter before we open up the public hearing? Seeing none on our side, opening up the public hearing. Speak to, for, against on the changes to align state law on parking requirements.
Good evening, Council. Tyler Garza, 62 McKinley. This is what I actually wanted to talk on. I understand that the change that we're making here is largely to match state law, and it's a great idea, and I wish it went further. To quote Councillor Tabor, there are neighborhoods that have housing density that we couldn't create today because of the parking limitations. And Councillor Bagley, just now, housing is more important than parking. However, the city has an interesting responsibility to create a resident parking program that is not undermined by expanding the workforce parking program or carving out free parking for friends and family. The point of the resident parking program is to calm existing resident fears that changes like this one and proposed dense downtown development will not create a parking Armageddon, whatever that might be. Calming those fears allows for continued downtown residential development that can cater to all socioeconomic groups and ages. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Any other speakers? To, for, against? Seeing no one rise, closing the public hearing. Wait a motion on this latest public hearing or second reading.
I move to pass the second reading and schedule a third reading for March 16th, 2026, City Council meeting.
Second?
Any further discussion? Councillor Bagley, Councillor Moreau.
I guess I would just agree with the last speaker that, we don't have to have parking requirements for single-family homes and ADUs. It's a choice we're making. And why this does improve the situation where it's requiring less parking than we had before I think we should get rid of it altogether.
And that's what I want to talk about, because we are working towards moving it out of our zoning altogether. And that is something we're working on, but it's not easy. As you saw, just that little change about mechanical units, we still miss something. So it's going to take some time, but we are going to move it into site plan review regulations and out of zoning, and that's what we're working towards, so that it is not so much of a burden. That's in process right now as one of the housing committee requirements, and the planning staff and planning board are in process. So just give it time.
So on that, we did pass that at the end of last council term to remove parking from the requirements under zoning and put them into site plan review as a part of the permitting process. Councilor Begley?
Just thank you, Your Honor. Clarifying question. Site plan review would mean that you still could be required to have parking.
Correct, but it'll be through, for everything 3 units and above, it'll be part of site plan review, so that we can look more at market conditions and specific properties and specific neighborhoods and make, adjustments based off of that versus everything trying to fit a square into a round, kind of thing, which is what we do now, where it's across the entire city. And downtown's very different from out in a rural area, and we need to have more flexibility in our parking. So that's why we're working towards moving it into our site plan review regulations. It'll only exist in zoning for single family and 2-family homes, because they don't hit enough units to hit site plan review.
Yeah, and just to further clarify, Your Honor, the parking I was talking about was for single-family homes and ADUs, which is excluded from the 3 units and above that you just talked about.
Doesn't mean we can't make that change at that point, but there's no point in changing that now if we can't get the rest of it out. Because it's trust me, it's just complicated. Give us time.
Well, we're on, so this is to comply state law. I think we're going to take back as part of the master plan. I will say that just I don't want to paraphrase the speaker, so these are my own thoughts, but the idea of balancing both the desire to have more housing with the fact that we governed at the consent of the governed, and making sure that we are having changes that are going to allow for more changes to happen that will allow us to have more housing. One of the biggest changes that we had last year was the we don't call them boarding houses anymore. We've churched up
co-living.
Co-living, yes. So the co-living, again, that fear has not been realized thus far, but it's not there. And so being able to have areas where we're actually showing that this is improving, in walkability and those things, I think this is a big change in terms of removing a parking requirement for an ADU. That is gone now, and we should take that win and continue on with that to build upon that. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to support these changes because it's a move in the right direction. I'm not a fan of parking requirements for residential neighborhoods, mostly because I think the market decides the way people choose their housing. They choose housing with parking if they need parking, and they choose housing without parking if they don't. And I say this from the perspective of somebody who lives in one of those very dense neighborhoods. I have 2 parking spots. We chose our house specifically because it had 2 parking spots because my husband has to commute to work. So we knew he needed a parking spot, and we needed a second spot for me and my daughter, who at the time we were also commuting. So we needed to have that access. That said, I have a neighbor immediately across the street who has no parking. And they don't need parking. They work at home. And so they don't have the same needs as I do, and people self-select in those neighborhoods. And that's why I'm not a fan of parking requirements, because I think it removes that self-selection and it removes that ability to have density in neighborhoods. I'm excited about this change because one of the things that I think impacts people in some of these denser neighborhoods is you can't add something like an ADU because of that extra parking space that you're required to have. That's been a situation with me in my house. Our daughter has gone off to college. Our daughter can come home and live with us in our house right now as an adult, and we don't have to have a 3rd parking spot. But the way that the zoning has looked for years has been that if we decided to subdivide the house and provide a space just for our daughter, then we'd have to have a third parking spot, which we cannot create. So it disincentivizes that ADU, building an ADU that maybe would only be available for our family for a short period of time, but then would become additional housing for somebody else in the community. And so I think this change helps to improve that situation and allows more individuals to build ADUs within their houses, especially in the denser neighborhoods in the community. And I think that that's really critical because we're talking about neighborhoods where people are already walking to work or can walk to work. So I think this is an important change, and I hope we continue to move in this direction. I would like to see elimination of a lot of parking requirements for single-family residential homes, but I think that does require some careful thought about a residential parking program. Thank you.
Any further questions? Let's see, we had the public comment.
Got a motion.
We have a motion. Oh, we need a motion.
No, we
All
have
right.
a motion.
We have a
Have a
motion.
motion.
Oh, we are good to go. All set. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
The,
Your Honor, can I make a motion to suspend the rules and bring forward third and final reading?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I make a motion to pass third and final reading?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
All right, that moves it for our hearings. We're on to the city manager's items which require action.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first request is a request of the council for scheduling a work session related to the Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive, or RSA 79E, and this is in response to Councilor Moreau's recent request. The proposal is to hold it on Monday, March 16th at 6 p.m. We would be very pleased to have as a host and speaker to the topic Sarah Reitzman, who's the Manager of Community Engagement and Education for New Hampshire Housing.
Great.
So with your indulgence, we'd like to hold that work session on the 16th.
Your Honor, I would move to schedule a work session regarding RSA 79E Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive on March 16th, 2026 at 6 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And thanks to Councilor Moreau.
Item number 2 is a request for an access easement for water services for property located at 4 Sagamore Road. You may recall that back at the January 20th City Council meeting, the council voted to refer this request to the city's legal department. And as noted in the requester's attorney's letter to the council, the legal department previously reviewed the proposed access agreement and recommended its acceptance. And it is provided here, and given the routine nature of this access agreement, its conformance with a form routinely accepted by council and the property's owners need to record the easement, the legal department recommends that we execute this forthwith.
Yeah, I would move to ratify acceptance of the access easement for water services for 4 Sagamore Development LLC as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Item C is a request to schedule a public hearing on refunding bond authorization, and the date says March 2nd, but to be clear, and given that we want to make sure we have ample time to legally notice, we would amend that to read March 16th. And to remind folks of what we're talking about, what we can do when it's possible is that the city has existing bond issues eligible for refunding or essentially refinancing, which would result in future interest savings. So we have a total of up to $8.5 million in debt that we would look to refinance over the remaining term, which is roughly about 8 years of these bonds. And these were bonds initially issued in June of 2014 for such projects that included the middle school renovations, the Hobbs Hill water tank, the Pierce Island wastewater treatment plant, and the Pease wastewater treatment plant. So the idea is to, in the same way we would all refi a mortgage at a lower rate, we look to refinance these bonds to save in excess of $443,000 net of all issuance costs over the life of the remaining bonds. So what we would like to do is hold a public hearing to be able to do this on March 16th.
Your Honor, I move to schedule a public hearing on March 16th for a current refunding bond resolution of up to $8,500,000 to refinance the remaining portion of the aforementioned callable bonds and all related costs.
Second?
Your Honor.
Councilor Morrow.
I just want to, because I want to make sure it's clear for the public, so to confirm with you, but the bonds don't get any longer. We're refinancing them within the terms that they currently, as far as, I just want to make sure everyone understands that, because I don't know that it was totally clear.
Yep, thanks for that clarification.
Any further conversation on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
My last item, Your Honor, is a request to schedule a public hearing on, for consideration of a supplemental appropriation for outside counsel, also at the March 16th meeting, not March 2nd, as mentioned in the packet. As we have shared, the city is involved in a complex litigation matter that is being handled by outside counsel, and at this point will require additional funding. The case of Banfield Road LLC versus the city et al. Is an environmental claim filed in the spring of 2023 against the city and several other parties in federal court. We were hoping to be excused from this matter, but as of this date, we have not, and so to cover bills that we anticipate, we are looking to establish a supplemental appropriation at the next meeting in the amount of $400,000.
Your Honor, I move to schedule a public hearing at the March 2nd, 2026 City Council meeting regarding the proposed supplemental appropriation from unassigned fund balance of $400,000 for outside counsel legal fees.
Second? Your Honor.
March 2nd.
I know.
Councilor, or Assistant Mayor.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the council received an email about this, the funding for outside counsel for this litigation, and I just wanted to clarify that this funding is for the representation of the city only, correct? All of the other plaintiffs named in the lawsuit are paying for their own legal fees.
Correct.
Oh, of course, yes.
Perfect. I assumed. I just wanted to make sure clear for the public record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Councilor Tabor.
I'd like to propose an amendment. This is a pretty large $400,000 request for a supplemental, and we have no detail of how many lawyers, at what rate, are there environmental engineers that we need to do. So I would like to amend this to request that in the council packet we get detailed estimates of the lawyers' costs, the number of attorneys, and the environmental engineering costs.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment if the second agrees.
Agreed.
As a part of the public hearing?
Yes.
There will be certain limitations to that, given our privileged relationship with our outside counsel and our strategy in this litigation, but I can provide more information in regards to where we are in the process and who we have representing us.
Yeah, I think obviously in the balance of being transparent of spending $400,000 of the taxpayers' money versus privileged relationships, I'd hope we could go as far as we can towards transparency.
Just to clarify, we have to hold it on the 16th. Apologies for the
His
error in
motion
all the
did say
dates.
the 16th.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for the confusion, everyone.
All right, as amended, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. We are on to the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, email correspondence.
Your Honor, I move to accept and place on file.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On to the council, boards and commissions. We have the board commissions and committee 2025 attendance records as in the packet.
Your Honor, I move to accept and approve the 2025 attendance records as presented.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Appointments to be voted. First, we have the appointment of Sarah Illingworth as an alternate to the Arts and Cultural Commission, the appointment of Mary Claire Rodriguez Abbott to the Portsmouth Energy Advisory Committee, the appointment of Heather Kranz to the Public Art Review Committee, and the appointment of Christopher Clement, Senior, to the trustees of the trust funds.
Your Honor, I move to appoint Sarah Illingworth as an alternate to the Arts and Cultural Commission, Mary Claire Rodriguez Abbott to the Portsmouth Energy Advisory Committee, Heather Kranz to the Public Art Review Committee, and Christopher Clement, Senior, to the trustees of the trust fund.
Second.
We are lucky enough to have Mary Claire Rodriguez Abbott, who has attended this entire meeting, assuming for this point, and appreciate the commitment and willingness to serve, and all the members that we will appoint. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you again for your willingness to serve Portsmouth. It is a not often thankless task, but I want to thank you at the outset of that for the willingness to work on behalf of making a better city. Appreciate you here tonight. On to the city council members. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Your Honor. You'll see a couple items in the packet that refer from, or referral from the legislative subcommittee. Our city council principles for our legislative policies, and then an update to our legislative subcommittee procedures for submission of testimony. So I thank City Attorney Jane Farini for her assistance in that. And I would look to move to approve the city council principles for legislative positions as presented, which authorizes the city to take position on legislation consistent with these principles.
Second.
Any questions or discussions with it?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Your Honor. And I would also move to approve the legislative subcommittee's procedures for submission of testimony as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Assistant Mayor. Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight, you'll see in your packet proposal to adopt a housing action plan. This came directly out of our strategic planning session. Councilor Moreau fought very hard to make sure we had a goal of adopting a housing action plan as a city council in the next 2 years term. And I want to encourage the council to move forward quicker than that. So tonight, I am moving to develop a housing action plan by July 2026 as specified for the council's 2026-27 goals, and I'll speak to it if I get a second.
Second.
Thank you. I think it's very important that we have a plan in place to move forward, and we need to move forward very quickly. One of the great things that we have in Portsmouth is we have a lot of incredible talent, and that's not just talent on our staff in the city of Portsmouth, but a lot of it is talent we have in the community. We're extremely fortunate to have skilled professionals who serve on our committees, and we have skilled professionals that also serve the community in other ways. In the past, we've seen that in crisis situations, such as during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we had the Portsmouth Design Professionals Alliance step forward and develop a plan for the city for outdoor dining that helped to support our restaurants that were really struggling during that time. We are facing a housing crisis that really can't be described easily to our community. You say that we have a housing problem, and people say, oh yeah, there's a housing problem, but if they're not feeling it directly, sometimes they don't see it. But it's truly a real crisis. Housing prices in the city of Portsmouth last month went over $1 million, the median price for housing in the city of Portsmouth to buy a home. And that means your average person, and not just your average person, somebody who's making sometimes more than twice what our median income is, still can't afford to purchase a home in the city of Portsmouth, let alone that, can't afford rents, which are still climbing because of the increasing housing costs. So we're dealing with a real crisis. We're not just seeing a hollowing out of our community as far as individuals who are below median income, but we're also seeing challenges for people who are middle class in our community, and then people who are not even, that have like, or upper middle class incomes, cannot move within the city. They can't afford to downsize within the community because they can't afford housing. So we're talking about a serious crisis. And we should be leveraging those skills and talents that we have in the community to assist us, because it's such a big crisis, we can't do it on our own. The city has incredible staff, but they don't have the time. And time is the most challenging resource we have with city staff. We are a very tight staff, which means that we're covering pretty much what we're required to cover, and they have very little time to go beyond their already required workloads, which means we need to leverage those outside resources. We have a group of individuals in the community who come together to find housing solutions for us. And it's a coalition of organizations from Home for All, the Workforce Housing Coalition, Progress Portsmouth, and other housing advocates who have helped to design a draft plan, draft housing plan, action plan for the city of Portsmouth. And we should utilize that draft housing action plan because it's based upon the work of the city's housing navigator, who we were fortunate enough to have serve the city for 2 years and helped design really goals for the community, but we had not kind of funneled those into a larger plan at this stage. So my proposal is clearly to start that process now, to take that draft housing action plan that's already been developed in the community, review it, make sure that it fits our needs, make any revisions that we need to make, but adopt it by July so that we have a head start on what we need to do for housing for the next year and a half beyond July.
Thank you, Councillor Cook. Any further discussion? Councillor Tabor.
I also was an advocate at our retreat for a housing action plan and the timetable that we're discussing here. I think it's really important that a housing action plan have the broadest input. Who owns the plan? Who's going to provide the leadership to follow it through? It's going to be us as elected officials. It's going to be our staff. So has this plan had input from the staff? Has this plan had input from the Housing Committee? It comes to us from Progress Portsmouth and this working group, and they're a really great asset to the city. They're really smart people. They've created an impressive list of 172 action steps, and they incorporate a lot of the best practices, as well as a lot of work that's been done over the years with Council Moreau's Land Use Committee, the Housing Navigator, its successor, the Housing Committee. But I'm concerned that since we work for everybody in the city, the whole community, not just the housing advocates. And so I think if we start with this as a draft, it needs input from the staff, it needs input from the public. And so I would really urge us to factor that into the next 3 months. And I would think we'd want several public hearings, well noticed, so that everybody can come. And I noticed in Portland, South Portland, an example that Jerry and the group put in. The public hearings started with the number of units needed at each of the various income levels, and then said, here are actions we can take to solve the problem, but here are the pros and cons of each of those for the public to debate. And I think that resulted in a much better informed plan. So I'm tonight just saying that we need to plan on, I would say 2 public hearings, well-noticed public hearings as part of this, so that the broad community gets input. And we take this from folks who have a strong single issue focus, which we've all benefited from over the last 3 years. and share it with the whole community and find the pros and cons. It's also going to be important to set priorities, and the community will help us set those priorities if we listen to them. So I would propose an amendment to this motion that we have at least 2 public hearings before our final vote of adoption of the housing action plan. And if I have a second, we can vote.
Seems
Or
like there's a
maybe-
second.
I would accept that as, I'm
Friendly.
amenable to that. I think it's, yeah, it's important to have public hearings on this.
That's an amendment, the second.
It was a friendly amendment?
It's a friendly, I'll take it as a friendly
Take
amendment.
it as a friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Okay, it is now a friendly amendment to public hearings. Any further discussion? Oh, Councilor Hopkins.
Oh, hey.
Didn't mean it like that.
No, I just wanted to highlight something that Councilor Tabor was talking about, and really, I think as we move forward with these big plans that affect so many people, I really do think educating the public on pros and cons and giving talking points, because what I hear a lot from parents, young families is, I don't even know what to do. You know, my neighbor rents in Atlantic Heights, and he's like, I'm never going to own a home. And I'm like, well, what would you do about it? And he's like, I don't even know what to do. So there's a big knowledge gap, myself included. I'm not an expert on any of this, but there's a big knowledge gap that I think is a barrier for folks to come and speak their mind because they feel like perhaps they don't have the best information. And honestly, you know, it's not top of mind to take precious time to find that information. So I think educational outreach alongside of public hearings, I think would go a long way for public engagement. And I just wanted to highlight that good idea from Councilor Tabor.
Thank you, Councilor Hopkins. Councilor Morrow.
Picking up on something that Councilor Hopkins said, I was actually sitting with a group of realtors in one of my other many jobs that I do in my life, and brought to their attention of like how many of you in this room don't actually realize that we have a first-time home buyer program here in Portsmouth with the city. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of realtors didn't know that. So those are the kinds of things in education that we need to find a way to get out there and make sure that people are aware of them, because we have a housing trust now. How many people know we have a housing trust? So those are types of things that we've been working on, and we're getting there, but maybe the housing action plan can start to highlight some of those things we've done and put into motion some things that we can do with those things, tools that we already have. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Thank you, Councilor Morrow. Assistant Mayor.
Thank you, Ritter. I'm glad the maker of the motion took the friendly amendment, because I think what this does is solidify that this can and will be a fully adoptable plan within the city. I think a lot of times now when it is looked at, it's looked at as a third party has put in all this time, this resources, and the city taking it, amending, adopting, becoming more amenable to the full scope. Well, I will say that Progress Portsmouth has a huge mailing list and has had huge community engagement. I think there's a segment of the population who maybe didn't come to some of the meetings or maybe aren't as housing friendly and so therefore felt excluded. And I think, again, having both sides of the conversation, much as we have had in the housing committee, just allows us to be a more thorough, thought out, better developed plan that is, again, has input from those who will, as Councilor Tabor and Councilor Cook have said, those who have to enact and will have the responsibility of enacting this plan.
Any further discussion? Councilor Cook.
Thank you, Your Honor. The one challenge with this motion is I did not include a specific reference to the Housing Committee or who was going to make the call on when the hearings would take place or when discussion would take place in order to adopt this, because I didn't want to make an assumption about staff time, because I know the planning staff is extremely busy right now with the master planning process. But I would hope that the Housing Committee would take this up as soon as possible and go ahead and schedule the public hearings, help us schedule the public hearings for discussion, so for adoption by July.
I think that's a great time to mention that applications are open for the Housing Committee. Feel free to see the clerk's office.
Thank you, Councillor Cook and Assistant Mayor. Councillor Tabor.
The only thing I'd add is one of the the ideas in the draft that I really like is restoring the housing navigator position, not out of taxpayer money, but out of the housing trust fund. And because I think when you have an action plan, you want to have somebody who wakes up every day saying, my job is to see that this action plan happens. And it could be a 12 or 24 month position, which, you know, would not dent the housing fund that badly. In fact, if this person does a good job, we would find ways through things like payments in lieu for developers that don't want to meet affordable housing unit criteria, or transfer of development rights where developers pay into a conservation fund, ways that this would pay itself back. So I'll work on that for one of the March meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Tabor. I'd just add, before we vote, there's a lot that we are and have done, as is noted, on housing through the Housing Committee, through zoning, through changes, some of the amendments that we had today, the Planning Board. I do think that there's value in creating a cohesive, quote-unquote, plan that encapsulates all of that, could be pointed to, can be referenced as folks want to know what we're doing, educational opportunities, as Councillor Hopkins pointed out, where people can get involved. I do like, though, where you started, Councillor Tabor, in setting up the pros and the cons, because I think all of us know how to get more housing here. The problem with housing is that it takes more than one council term to finish. You know, we can start the housing, and the pushback on that housing can result in another council that might have a different opinion on that. And so when we're honest about the trade-offs to our lives when it comes to housing, when we're honest about what inaction actually does, which it's an action in and of itself, when we choose not to enact policies that make housing easier, when we choose not to, when we talk about parking requirements and restrictions there, what it means for housing, when we think about housing for our kids, I'm still in the phase of getting my kids out of bed, but one day would like them out of the house into their own house. And so figuring out how do we align, a plan that truly is something that, although there is great work done by Progress Portsmouth, by a number, by our former housing navigator, the most important part of this process, and why I'm happy to see it included as a part of this motion, is to get buy-in from actual residents, and not just those that are excited about housing, but those that are skeptical about housing and have questions on what that's going to mean for their parking, what's it going to mean, for their taxes, to understand what this actually does to them, to get them bought in. I'm optimistic that we can get this, by July, but I know that this is a conversation that will continually be iterated on, because councils can't compel future councils to do squat. So we need to make sure that it continues to be a plan that is always having the buy-in, and it's an active, living, breathing document that responds to what citizens want, because we all know we want housing. We all are frustrated with the length that it takes to get the cost of the housing that we build, and we need to have more conversations around that, because ultimately it doesn't lie. It lies with us, but it more lies with the folks that go to the ballot and are active and vocal every single day. We need their buy-in, and I'm excited that this plan will be a chance to consolidate all the work that we've done, all the work that our friends outside of our government have done to bring us to a place where we can truly remark on that and work to build more housing. So, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor Blaylock.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to evaluate the current community health needs, identify service gaps, and develop coordinated, equitable, and sustainable recommendations aimed at improving mental health for all Portsmouth residents. If I get a second, I will elaborate. Thank you. So I went, they had a talk at the high school, Judge Broderick and a former NFL player, and the big talk was on mental health, specifically around youth and sports. And so I attended as a local coach, local youth coach. But I also met Amy Michaels there from the Greater Portsmouth Youth Wellness Coalition. So then after we met, we got talking and kind of realized that there is no central group for all our mental health organizations to communicate and to talk. So she kind of, this was, she did a lot of work on this proposal, but I'm happy to bring it before you tonight. The primary goals of this, we call it a behavioral health task force. The primary goals would be, as I said before, to evaluate the current community mental health needs, identify service gaps, and develop coordinated, equitable, and sustainable recommendations aimed at improving mental health for all Portsmouth residents. There's four main key goals, or key areas that this group would try to focus on and communicate, collaborate. Number one would be prevention, implementing programs that proactively address mental health challenges before they escalate. Number two would be early intervention, establishing systems for identifying and supporting individuals who may be at risk of developing more severe mental health issues. Number three would be crisis response, developing effective crisis intervention strategies to respond to mental health crises in a timely and compassionate manner. And number four, long-term system coordination, facilitating collaboration among various service providers to ensure that mental health services are comprehensive and accessible to everyone in our community. I think it's important we approach this endeavor with a mindset of coordination and collaboration of more existing services. I'm not trying to add any or spend any money. By working together and leveraging these resources that are already in place, we can avoid wasting valuable time and money by not recreating programs that may already exist. This collective approach will enhance our efficiency and impact, ensuring that we are meeting the needs of the community effectively. I've reached out to several organizations and tried to coordinate potential members of this task force. I've already spoken with Amy Michaels of the Greater Portsmouth Youth Wellness Coalition. I've reached out to Seacoast Mental Health, Connections Peer Support, Safe Harbor Recovery Center, Portsmouth Housing Authority, Foundation of Seacoast Health. But I was also hoping that maybe, I know they have busy schedules, but either Brooke Murphy or Rochelle Jones from the Portsmouth Police Department, either if they were available to join this group, I think that would be very beneficial. But yeah, really this is just trying to collaborate, respectful of everyone's time, so the idea was to make it a quarterly group.
Thank you, Councillor Blaylock. Assistant Mayor.
Your Honor, and I'm not sure if Councillor Blaylock is aware, there is already a Portsmouth Mental Health Alliance that does exist, that does meet quarterly, and so maybe we could look to them to potentially expand into kind of more of what you are saying.
I'd be happy to invite them to join us, you know what I mean? I just think there's no city, place where, like, I live in the city of Portsmouth, this is, where we go get, and I mean, this is, I've heard this from Amy and Greg Hammond from.
Oh, yeah, I'm not just,
I'm aware of the.
Yeah, Greg is part of this, the Seacoast Seacoast.
Yeah, so I've talked with him, he's very supportive of.
Yeah, I just think.
My proposal tonight.
I'm not disagreeing with your proposal. What I'm saying is that I think there's already some structure within that, and so to make sure we include that, they hold usually quarterly meetings, and so maybe it's whether we become the facilitator, we allow them in New Hampshire and NH listens to stay within a facilitation. Just an idea to play on.
Yeah, certainly. The more the merrier, but we don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, obviously. But no, if they're already making some of these efforts, like I said, the point of this is coordination and collaboration.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent. Councillor Hopkins.
Mental health is so important, and I just wanted to see if you could include reaching out to maternal mental health providers. New Hampshire Mom Hub, I think, is one that's local. Hope on Haven Hill. There's a lot of people doing good work. And then also, I wanted to point out that this dovetails with some state legislation. The Momnibus 2.0 has increased access for funds specifically for maternal mental health and peer support groups, which is an interesting thing because we all know that there's a lack of providers in the mental health realm and lack of access. So there was some funding, I believe, at the state level in Momnibus 2.0 that would specifically look at training programs for peer-to-peer support, so like mom-to-mom support, so that you can just reach out and hopefully, feel less isolated and feel supported as, you move through this difficult journey in these difficult times. So I think this is a great initiative. I would just ask that we would reach out into the maternal health realm as well, because that is a desperately needed support in our community and nationwide.
Indeed. Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Any other discussion, comments for Councillor Blaylock? We could expect names, potentially suggestions at the next council meeting or the one to follow. Agree, it's a good idea, especially with the, I'm forgetting her organization now, but Amy's Youth Wellness Coalition was granted a fair amount of opioid relief monies targeting mental health of students, so being able to expand and use that as a way to leverage some of our existing resources would be a great way that we could identify gaps and opportunities to expand that within the city. So with that, full support. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Next, approval of grants, donations. Approval of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the amount of $850,000.
Your Honor, I move to accept up to $850,000 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and to authorize the city manager to enter into a grant agreement, including any future schedule modifications to support design and construction services for 2 trailhead facilities.
Second.
Really thankful and impressed with that amount of money. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next, the approval of a grant agreement with the U.S. Environment Protection Agency to protect water and the water quality of the Bellamy Reservoir in the amount of $714,000.
Your Honor, I move to accept up to $714,000 from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and to authorize the city manager to enter into the grant agreement as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to add that Water Resource Director Al Pratt's on Zoom, and he gets the credit for this one, so thank you, Al.
And this is the one that we had set aside money in case we had not received this, but
Correct.
we did receive that, so great job, Al.
Another 2 thumbs up.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? City manager.
Really quick update on Flash Vote. The most recent survey went out last Wednesday with the 48-hour turnaround of last Friday. The topic was public art, and we had roughly half of the pool responding, just about 400 responses. And what it showed us was preliminary information that support for public art in the city is broad and strong, and a clear majority rates it as very or extremely important. There's an especially strong interest in murals and in the visible downtown placement of art. Comment themes show enthusiasm for local artists, history-forward storytelling, and kid-friendly or interactive pieces. There were recurring concerns about costs, upkeep, and the fit of specific recent installations. Their full details are on the website at the Flash Vote page, and those are always really interesting ways to get information from people, so thanks for those who participated.
I have a question about Flash Vote. How do the topics get proposed for?
Great question. A whole bunch of different ways. Monty's here. We sometimes it's a poll, a question that comes from the council. Sometimes it's a question that comes from something that we're trying to inform, like the master plan. And I believe this one came from Park. I'm not positive, but it came from the Public Art Review Committee. Monty says yes.
Monty says yes.
If you need, if you are looking for a way to get some information, we'd be happy to consider putting out a survey.
Thanks, City Manager. Anything under miscellaneous? Without that, wait a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Portsmouth.